Welcome. This is Built Between the Lines, where we explore discipline, faith, leadership, resiliency, the things we do behind the scenes that builds the unshakable character. So today with me, a very special guest, Eric Weinheimer, underwriting counsel, Old Republic title.
That's right.
How are you today?
I'm good, Ben. Thanks for having me.
No, this is awesome. Here. This is awesome. Yeah, we've, I think we kind of grew up together in the title industry, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm considerably older than you are, of course, but
considerable feels like a stretch.
But when you're in title, or real estate, it's like 1 year is like 10 years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? So it's like a dog year type of thing. But I laugh because I got into a little later in the game than you did.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, not too many people get into it as early as I did.
Right.
But 13 years in the business. I don't have hair anymore. My beard is gray, and that was not true 13 years ago. So
this is a hairpiece.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. That's why it looks so good.
No, but I mean it's true. Like we started Avenue to Close in 2011, right? Coming into this and doing that at that time, it's amazing. And I've said this before on here about how there's absolutely like zero education that gets you prepared for the title side of things on our end.
Yeah,
on our production
but I would
end.
agree from my end too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I went to law school after undergrad and nothing taught me the ins and outs of my everyday. The only thing that ever taught me that is learning on the job, thrown into the fire type of thing.
Right.
Because there's no education.
No.
There's bar tests you had to pass for attorneys. There's licensing exams you had to pass as a title agent, but there's no school, there's no class where you learn that stuff.
No, that's the kind of ironic part about like second level education, right?
Yeah.
Whatever you're gonna do, right?
Right.
You went in the law school. But for people who have that license, we talk about realtors or loan originators or title agents, right? You pass the test. There's all the theory you have to go through.
Yeah.
Right. Some little bar that you have to get a little bit of above to get your license. Yeah, sure. Right. But it doesn't teach you how to use that.
No.
Right. Like if you're in law school, they're not going to teach you how to litigate.
Yeah,
to a certain degree.
Litigation, I think, is a little bit different than what we do.
Right.
Litigation, there are classes that are mock trials and things like that they teach you how to prepare a case, how to present a case. So litigation is kind of on the nose for law school. That's what everybody thinks about when they think about lawyers. But not all of us are in litigation.
Right.
I went to law school terrified of litigation.
Mm-hmm.
I never wanted to do that, never took those classes, never have done that.
Right.
I sit behind a desk and respond to questions and answer the phone all day.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I wanted to do when I went to law school.
Right.
So from my perspective of what I do every day, there's no law school class on title insurance. There's no law school. Yeah, there's a real property class, but that deals with so many other things. There's a quick story. There's our real property is a first year class. Everybody takes it. It's 2 semesters long. We had a huge textbook for the whole year. There was a chapter on title insurance. Professor never taught on that chapter. He said, this is title insurance. The only thing I'm going to tell you is that to the extent your clients are buying real property, they should get title insurance. And then we went to the next chapter that had nothing to do with title. That was it.
Yeah, come back later.
That was it. So, to kind of hammer home that point, nobody taught me how to be, a title examiner first and a title insurance underwriter. There was no handbook for that.
Right.
It's just learning on the job.
Yeah, that OJT.
Yeah, that's it. That's all it is.
Yeah. Well, I think so. You said something in there that I want to bring back upon too, because again, even having the class on litigation, right, or understanding and having enough of that education on title insurance, right. It doesn't teach you how to take a situation and bring it down into how it affects the people. Right. Like litigation is the same way. If you're going to be taught how to do that, or you're in med school and you're learning how to, perform surgery.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't give you that thing that person to person relation. It doesn't teach you that person to person relationship.
Yeah. No. That's all stuff that we develop in our personal lives. I would say first, right? Friends and family. But that's a funny thing they say about law school is that all the A students end up working for the C students. They say that all the time, and that's because the kids that are getting C's maybe are not in a library,
right,
18 hours a day studying.
Yeah,
they're living life and getting by.
Yeah,
with C's get degrees, right? But
that's what
they say all the A students work for the C students.
Yeah,
because that's what it boils down to. What you're saying is the person-to-person, interpersonal relationship and communication that some people that get straight A's don't necessarily have in spades.
Right.
And, you hear about bedside manner of surgeons all the time. Some are better at it than others, but they're not known for their bedside manner.
Right.
They're known for their surgical skills.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's the same for attorneys.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the same thing for anything that you're doing.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. It's what kind of connection can you make with that next person, right?
Yeah.
And then so for me, I said we kind of grew up together in the industry, right? So
yes,
it's I've shared this story before many times in other arenas, but for me, I think in business, you're fortunate enough when it's a relationship turns into like an acquaintanceship, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you become a little more fortunate when it's a friendship,
right?
And then there's that rare type of like legacy relationship that you build that's like family.
Yeah.
Right. And like for you, you're my family in this industry.
I appreciate
right?
that. I feel likewise.
Absolutely.
Because like we've grown up together. We're title brothers is what it feels like.
Right. But I'll go back to the story of when you first started.
Yes.
I think I'm green. I'm 2 years into this, but we're having some success out there. We're going to networking events. I'm going to networking events. I'm going to everywhere. I'm putting myself where I need to be, I think, to try to get really quickly acquainted with the title industry, right? Or the real estate industry in general in 2013. So I have this transaction. It's a commercial transaction. There's I won't go into details because we'll bore it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
everybody's trying to
but nonetheless, this commercial transaction was a very large one, in the several seven figures. Mm-hmm. So for me, I had this file for probably 6 months, right? So a week before Christmas, the attorney counsel for lender calls me on the phone and says, "We want to close this. We have to close this by Christmas Eve." What?
It's like 3 days.
I've had this for 6 months. Yeah. Everybody's like, you guys have been crickets on that end. So, okay, fine. I find out why Christmas Eve, because then everybody at the law firm is going to the Caribbean, the day after Christmas.
Must be nice.
Yeah, I said to myself, guess who's not going to Caribbean after Christmas? So we're fine. I understand the timeline because that's what we do in this industry. Right. We're up against the wall of the timeline. Right, the effectuation of a sales agreement. Right, the settlement date. We're right there. We're not a party. We're not a party to the standard agreement of sale, but we have to abide by the terms of it.
Yep.
Right. So we're the governor of this entire transaction, leading all the way through. So the attorneys, like, we got to close by Christmas. Oh man, okay. Here's the paperwork. We're ready to go. I'm working it. It's great. They come back after their internal review. 2 days later, maybe 3 days before Christmas Eve now, and they have all of these exceptions or all of these endorsements they want to add to the title, right? Access here, things. I'm like, ooh, I don't know what these are, right? Because I'm 2 years in, right?
Yeah, you probably hadn't
talking
had
about
a
a 13, whatever, 48 or 16.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, these are fine. These are abutting properties. I love this, right? Yeah, there's ingress, egress, regress. So I again, it's cognizant because the industry starts to wind down a little bit around Christmas. Underwriting counsel at the time, I think, might have been off, right? So I'm there on Christmas Eve.
Well, some of the underwriting
counsel. Yeah, we're going to get to that. Right? So part of this on Christmas Eve and the morning of, again, my wife was not very happy. But I said, I gotta, this is,
It's before I had kids, so I was okay.
Well, yeah. Not me. But I'm calling Old Republic. I'm calling. It's like, oh, I'm like, and then all of a sudden, bam! Like Eric picks up.
Yeah, hilarious that I was actually sitting at my desk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like to think of being at the office on Christmas Eve seems insane now because, COVID allowed us a lot of more flexibility to work remotely. So I haven't worked in the office on Christmas Eve maybe since then.
Right.
or at least since COVID.
All right. Yeah. So, the whole landscape. Yeah, we got to go back to that.
I mean, it's just funny remembering picking up my landline, which we don't have anymore.
Right.
At my desk.
Man, we're really good.
Yeah, it's crazy.
This is when you had to shove the pterodactyl off.
Right, exactly,
Pick up the stone, and we had, it's not that long ago. But so it's like 11, it's like 10 o'clock, 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm frantic. I got to get this
Understandably
done. They're doing this.
Yeah.
Okay. I call. This is Eric Weinheimer. Okay, where's so and so? Because I won't mention any names, but it's like, where's so and so? I was like, not here. What do you mean? Okay, I need help. Well, I can help you. Who are you?
Who's this guy?
Who's this guy? So,
I was new. I started in August of that year, and this is Christmas Eve. So a couple months.
Right.
I didn't know what I was doing.
Well, at that time, I was very default aggressive in everything that I did. So, like, who are you? Right. I'm going to try to get through. I've tampered that down a little bit over my time now. Right.
Yeah.
But so it's like, Eric, I have this problem. This is crazy. I said, so, you're like, ooh, wait a minute. I got to check on this myself.
Yeah.
Right. Because some of the endorsements we couldn't even issue in Pennsylvania.
Right.
Right. So, again, details that are going to muck and mire this thing up.
Yeah.
But, so I'm like, I really have this problem. I don't know what's going to... Okay, so long story, not so long.
Yeah.
Right? We get this thing successfully done. But we're on the phone back and forth till probably 4:30. I'm like, how... And then, after our 28 conversations that day, that's an exaggeration, but it's probably more like 32.
Yeah. It was a lot.
Yeah.
I think you were the only other title agent working though.
I think it was.
I don't know that I worked on any other transactions anywhere across the state. It was just you and me,
right?
And the Isoplex.
Mm-hmm. But so we get this done, right? Eric, how long you? By this time, I'm like, we're best friends.
Yeah,
after 6 hours of okay, awesome. So we get this thing done. All the paperwork, great. Everything's done. This didn't close until the after Christmas. It didn't matter. It didn't matter to council though. Everything was buttoned up. When do you want to sign? Okay, sign this on Tuesday.
When you come back.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. But that part of it was done.
Our part.
Our part. Yes. Yeah. Our part was done. Right. The underwriter's part was done. Right?
Yeah.
Not our part. Yeah.
Well, not your part. My part. That's right. It's my part.
We're not done for another 6 to 8 weeks after that because we got to issue a policy.
Yeah.
All that. Right. But so from 2013, right, now anytime that I would call after that Christmas Eve, it would be right to you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It would be right to you.
You're not asking for so-and-so anymore.
I'm not. Well, I am now. But I was then.
Yeah.
It was real quick for me.
Yeah.
But the story inside of that is now, as our friendship has grown, that Christmas Eve call is now happens every single year.
Yeah.
Regardless of where it is. If it's a Saturday, right?
Yep.
It's this Saturday. I call him on the phone.
Yep.
Because we go back all of those years to 2013.
Yeah.
Right. And now because, I could be a little glib, maybe if that's the right terminology for it, maybe.
I don't find you to be glib.
No?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Maybe there's a different word for that.
Yeah.
I like to joke around a lot, but it's just there's a seriousness behind that.
Yeah,
right?
Of course. And I think that's why I don't view it as glib.
Right.
Because I know that there's a seriousness.
Right.
And it's heartfelt in some form or fashion.
It really is. So maybe droll.
Droll
might
like
be
that fits a little
the
better.
satirical side might be a little bit better of a term for that. Yeah. So through the years, in this Christmas Eve call, that movie, what's that? Catch Me If You Can.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Leo and Tom Hanks.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, every Christmas Eve. You haven't seen the movie. It's a great movie.
Yeah.
Right. It's based on a true story, of course. Frank
Spoilers,
Abagnale
of
Jr.,
course. But
right?
this movie's like 15 years old, so
it's awesome.
So catch up. Yeah.
Right. Catch Me If You Can.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. So every Christmas Eve, Frank Abagnale Jr. would call Tom Hanks' character, Carl Hanratty.
Yes.
No matter where they were, right?
Yep.
Carl was the FBI agent. He's trying to track down Frank Abagnale Jr. for his counterfeiting all over the international stage.
Yeah,
right.
Couldn't find him.
How long? Yeah. So every year, Frank would call Carl on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
So, hey, Carl, how you doing?
Yeah,
right?
the only difference is that Leo and Tom Hanks' characters in the movie are coming from a place of loneliness.
Sure.
A criminal on the run, doesn't have any family. Tom Hanks is, beaten down by trying to catch this criminal.
Right.
So he's lonely in the office every Christmas Eve because he's got family strife too.
Yeah.
That's not our case.
No.
Certainly.
No, so that's why that's where the drone is, because it's like Eric has become my Carl Hanratty.
Right, exactly.
Right? Not that you're trying to catch me in anything.
Of course not.
In that instance, like there's a relationship there, however it's born.
Yeah.
Right? That every Christmas Eve there's that tradition call.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
So we laugh about that. So
we
it's
do.
like Eric's my Carl Hanratty.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You're my Frank Abagnale Jr.
That's how that works.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But no, that to me, that's that's why I said consider you like family for that.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Because like, there's something that gets elevated way beyond business.
Right.
How's your wife? How are the kids?
Yeah.
How the first call and picking up the telephone and you answering is not, I have a problem. I'm going right to say my right. So
we're not talking about endorsements on Christmas Eve anymore.
No,
I'll guarantee you that.
No.
Yeah.
But but you have to grow kind of in any relationship that you build, that you grow into that with the foundation that you've built, right?
Yeah.
By what? Right away, by being a solid, decent human being.
Right. The interpersonal skills that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
It's just like you don't even necessarily set out to intentionally create those types of relationships. It's just something that organically happens if you have the right mindset first. You and I will talk title until everybody's bored and everybody turns it off. But we don't all the time.
Right.
We do when we have to. But most of the time, we're talking about our families. We're talking about our next golf game. We're talking about all the things that we do on a day-to-day basis that has nothing to do with work. And the relationship started as work. You call, you don't know who I am, but I'm going to have the answers to your questions. So that's where we start. And then look at us 13 years later.
Right.
That's now you and I talk title less than your staff and I talk
Absolutely.
title.
Right.
But you and I still have a great relationship. You call me every Christmas Eve.
There it is.
On my personal cell phone.
Yeah, I have. I only use that. Like I break the glass.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not an emergency.
You have to. Yeah.
It's the tradition.
Right. Exactly.
So I wanted to share that story.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, I wanted to memorialize.
That's our origin
I wanted
story.
to memorialize.
Yeah,
that,
exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So you went to Dayton, right?
Undergrad in Dayton, Ohio, University of Dayton. Go Flyers.
Did you know you wanted to be an attorney from the very beginning?
That's an interesting question. The answer is no. And we'll talk about it, but I always say that I was born into title. I just didn't realize it until I was a grown up. I went to school to be a sports writer. That was my pie in the sky goal. And then you get to school and you're taking classes and you realize that I don't want to write about high school sports for the next 15 years of my life. Is there any way to jump that step? The answer is no. So I was like, I got to find something else to do. I liked writing. I love sports, still do. But it wasn't going to get to where I wanted to go in any kind of real way. And along the way, there's no opportunity to make money to start a family, which was always my goal, and all those things. So I abandoned that dream pretty quickly at UD. But I did finish and get my degree in communications, kind of pivoted from journalism to like a broader communication degree. And really the name of the game was my GPA. Because at that point I knew, okay, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to go to law school. So, I had to concentrate on keeping my grades up so that I had that opportunity going forward. And, obviously that ended up being what it was. But yeah, I did not set out for school to be a title underwriter for sure. Yeah. But it's baked in there somewhere.
Okay.
Just had to come out.
Yeah. So that was probably a fun conversation with your parents. Right?
Well, it wasn't great. Yeah. I don't know that I had that conversation until I was a junior at Dayton. I had switched my major, broadened it out. And I think that I had to tell them, because I needed money as a broke college student, to apply to law school. So I think I didn't have that conversation until then.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, they were okay with it. Like if you're on a law school track and you tell your parents, no, I'm going to go be a creative writer or a journalist, I think that's a harder conversation.
Sure.
But they, I think, were concerned about paying for law school. And I was like, you guys don't need to do that. And they couldn't and they didn't. Yeah. And that's fine. You know, I figured that out on my own. And that's, you know, so I think that was an easier conversation than the reverse might have been.
Right.
But, you know, I think it was a surprise to them. I don't think now, looking back, that they would have said that I made the wrong decision. I certainly don't think that. But yeah, it was definitely interesting to kind of pick the trajectory of your life when you're an 18, 19-year-old kid.
Absolutely.
You know, that's a weird thing that we do as a society in general. It's like these kids are pushed to go to college after high school, and then you have to decide what you're going to major in, which is in some form or fashion going to direct the way your life goes. That's a heavy decision for 18 and 19-year-old kids.
Yeah.
But, you know, we all figure it out some way.
Well, I think, but there's an interesting point in there, and that's why I said it was an interesting conversation with your parents, because I think as that, like as the generations continue to go here, you know, I have a kid who's a senior in high school now, so it's like, what's the path at that point? When I, and again, I think you're the generation somewhere between me and him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Sure.
There might be another one in there. I don't keep up on the generations as they come out, but
no.
You know, I think that you know, I think, but for that, it's like, well, okay, what do you want to do, right? So as a parent, you're you know, back then for me, it was like, well, there's no other course of action for you to take, right? You're going to college.
Yeah, exactly. Right? And that's what I mean. And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing that we're telling kids that graduate from high school to go to college. I'm just saying that's the path.
Right.
For most kids with enough, we'll call it privilege, to have that opportunity, that's what you're going to do.
Right.
And that's just what it is.
Yeah.
Growing up where I grew up and with the parents that I had, that was what was going to happen.
Yeah.
No, I never had a question about that. I would never thought twice about that. That's just what everybody did.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's an opportunity for a better life, but choosing your life at that age seems kind of crazy.
You know, it's funny because I was like, when I came out, when I was right out of high school, I was supposed to go to college, right? But I was very young. Like I graduated when I was 17, so I was a little young.
Oh,
in that aspect. So maybe something you've never known before.
I didn't know that.
But like I was squared away to go to like Ohio State, you know, and then like a month before, I'm like, I'm not doing that. And like, what?
I'm not ready for that.
Do you have a plan? I'm like, I'm gonna work, right?
Yeah.
So. You know, my interesting journey in that was I knew I wasn't ready for that yet.
Yeah.
You know, but you better be sure on like a month or 2 or 3 months into pouring concrete. Right.
You have some exit plan.
Yeah. Yeah. And the guy who owned the place he's probably my age that I am now. So, and he's like, we're on a job and I'm sweating and I'm doing great and whatever. And he's sitting on a bucket, like looking at me and I'm sweating. He's like, hey, Tony DeAndre, he's awesome. He said, hey, do you learn anything today? And I'm on anybody who's finishing concrete knows like what goes on with this. I look up at him, sweat in my face. I said, yeah, I'm going to college. He was like, that's my man right there.
Yeah.
So I did. I applied to school and then, you know, there you are.
Yeah, and I have a similar story. I bagged groceries in high school at Giant Eagle. And they always wanted me to be a cashier. And I said, am I going to get paid more? And the answer was always no. I was like, then why would I want to do more work? I didn't say that, but I said, no, I'll just stick to bagging groceries. I bagged groceries for 2 years part-time with school. And that taught me, you know, I'm working alongside adults that this is their career. And there's nothing wrong with that. But that taught me that I didn't want to bag groceries the rest of my life. You know, it's certainly not finishing concrete. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
The manual labor side of it certainly is different, but it gave me the perspective to know that I wanted to go, you know, that was the preordained path for us at that time. But I knew that that's the path I wanted to take.
Right.
Because I knew that I wanted to do something different than that for the rest of my life.
Right. So I shared my story of pouring concrete, but that was 30 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that the landscape of the professional world has shifted so much in that time period that the only option was take over his business, right?
Yeah.
Which, if back then, like where I grew up, it would be like every 8 doors would be a concrete company.
Oh, sure.
Right. So so we're talking about the supply and demand of this. Like, oh, I don't know. I'm not gonna. I can't. I saw that at a young age. I'm like, the market's saturated with that sort of thing, right? So, but now you shift fast forward 30 years later, and we talk about the opportunity for colleges or trades, right?
Yeah.
The trade industry now is for kids coming out, man, woman, doesn't matter. Like you can get into a trade and you bypass that whole if college is not for you thing.
Right. Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, and they say with the advancements in AI, the jobs that are safe are the jobs that people are doing things, right?
Right.
I don't know that, they're replacing you and me with AI. I don't think that's happening. There's still, a large percent of our business that comes down to being personable, right? It's not just data driven like that.
Right.
But they say the safest jobs are the plumbers, the electricians, the HVAC technicians, those trades that machines can't do and probably won't be able to do at least for another 50 years.
Yeah.
When we're run by robots. But yes.
There is that fear, right?
Yeah.
But I think, there should be some kind of a swing coming back, because I think in business, it's creeping into ours now.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. That's why I mentioned it.
Yeah. It's got to scare, the governing bodies and the title insurance underwriters that you would want me to rely upon AI to scrub a title.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's,
yeah.
Anytime you have human beings involved, there's always some degree of error.
Yeah, of course. Of
right?
course.
Plus or minus, depending upon the human.
Yeah.
But, I think we're good in all of that, but there's got to be some kind of a swing that comes back.
Right. And, that's just, a long way of saying that there's other opportunities other than going to college. I think that, again, depending on your family, your community that you grew up in, like that's the expected status quo, but that's not necessarily the only way that you can go and become a successful adult and build all the things that you wanted to with a family and whatnot. So it's just it happened to be that my path led me to the University of Dayton. And then I decided I wanted to go to law school, and I decided I wanted to go to law school because I wanted to be, whatever it meant at the time in my mind, a real estate attorney. I don't know what that means. I still don't know what that means. I'm a title insurance underwriting attorney. I don't know what a real estate attorney does necessarily, because I've never been one. But, I joked at the beginning, I was born into the title, but I didn't realize it until I was like 23 years old. My grandfather, I'm third generation in the title business, which is strange. I went into the family business. Good for me. But my grandfather was an attorney who did a lot of transactional estate. He did trusts and estates. He did he administered estates. He did a lot of real estate transactions. And at the time, it wasn't title insurance. It's called, you've probably run into it in the middle of the state, certificates of title that attorneys issue, and it's backed by their malpractice insurance, right? It's not a separate policy for your title or title insurance company. It's backed by the already existing malpractice insurance. So my grandfather did that, and as part of that business, he learned how to search titles, which is the backbone of what you and I do every day. And he taught my father that trade. My father went to school, graduated with a degree in regional urban planning, something like that. I don't know what that means. I don't know that he could tell you what that means either anymore, but he went to work for himself. Yeah. I was born, and 3 months later, he started his own business, searching titles. And so I grew up in that business.
Yeah.
I was pulling mortgage satisfaction books when that was still the way you did it.
Right.
Now everything's digitized, but
in most places.
In most places.
In most
places. Yeah. But I was pulling old mortgage books to make sure they were stamped satisfied.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't show it on the title reports that he generated for title agents across the state. So, I knew what title insurance was long before I ever thought I could have a career in it.
Right.
Because I knew that was the end game of what my dad was doing. So, I grew up in the recorder of deeds offices.
That's awesome. Field trip today.
Yeah, exactly.
Summertime.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
So you're eating your Cheerios talking about
absolutely
encumbrances.
Yeah, exactly. I could tell you all the great lunch spots down by the recorder of deeds offices in Allegheny, Butler counties. That's what I did all summer.
So that was it.
That was it.
So you didn't realize till you were 23 or
that
4
I was going to go into that business. Yeah, exactly. It's like I had to realize I didn't want to be a sports writer or didn't want to go down that path. And then, realize I want to go to law school then. And then realize I want to be in real estate because, I know a little bit about that side of the world.
Yeah.
And, here I am. I mean, people set out their careers to sit in the chair, the proverbial chair that I sit in every day. And I kind of backdoored into it when I was 26 years old, and here I am.
Yeah. No, I don't see that as a backdoor.
Well, it kind of felt like that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, the normal trajectory is you work at a practice, you work on transactions, you close deals, or you work for a title agent, and you close deals and you learn the business that way. And then if you have a law degree, you have the opportunity to potentially get a job as an underwriter. The problem with that is once you get that job, nobody wants to give it up, right? I started at Old Republic when I was 26. I don't plan on leaving ever.
Right.
Unless they ask me to leave.
I don't think that's
I hope not. I hope not. Knock on wood. I work hard every day to make sure that's not the case.
That's gonna happen.
But it's the traditional path is doing the actual transactional work first and then becoming an underwriter.
Okay.
And I know enough about the transactional aspect of our jobs, your job mostly. Because I've been doing this for so long.
Right.
But I never was the person that walked into a closing room and said, "Hey, I'm Eric Weinheimer. I'm going to be closing your deal today."
Right.
That's not me.
Right.
I've never been that guy. And like I said, I know enough about this business and these practices that our agents do every day on behalf of Old Republic that I can talk intelligently about them and know the way things are supposed to go. But that's not the normal path. That's what I mean by backdoor. I don't.
Sure.
It's not like I didn't earn it.
No.
I just earned it in a different way than the most traditional.
Right.
Path that people can take.
Yeah, but what I find most interesting, I think, about you, because again, like you've grown, like so we laugh when you ate your Cheerios. You talk about liens and encumbrances, and what's this going to look like? Yeah, mortgage sat pieces. Nobody raised. Send me, please. Yeah. That's awesome. But you have done such a great job over the years and continue to grow that craft of yours, right? To where you use your knowledge and you use your experience, and then you use your degree and what you have as a shield as opposed to a sword.
Right, absolutely, right? Absolutely.
Like all the people that have been in whatever business for however long, right? I've been doing this for 58 years. Yeah, great. Or 30 years. Awesome. I know. That's great. I'm glad. People come out of the gate with that right away as a sword. I've never seen this. I've been doing it for 30 years.
No.
Great, awesome. I wasn't there when you sold Ben Franklin his house. That was awesome. Right? Like great. Right? But that's a sword right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. You in your capacity, not only for your employer,
yes,
right, but also your title agents as well too, right? So when we're talking on the phone, it's your knowledge and your experience is a shield and not as opposed to a sword. So you never ever come off. And I hate absolutes, but I just put 3 of them in.
Yeah,
right. It's not. Right? But this is the honest. You never allow. You don't. That ego does not come forward.
Oh yeah.
In your conversations with solving problems, for, the people who represent Old Republic as title agents.
Yeah, and that's kind of the beauty of what I do. We talked about how I didn't want to be in the litigation. I didn't want to be in the litigation because I didn't want to stand up in front of a room and talk. The irony there is now I stand in front of rooms of hundreds of people and talk about title, right? But I know enough about title. I'm very confident when I'm up there because I know what we're talking about, that type of thing. But the litigation, the other part of litigation that it would not suit my personality is that it's so adversarial. It's this side against this side. It's this plaintiff against this defendant. And sure, there's a place for that in the world. That is a necessary service that lawyers provide. It's not for me. The beauty of what I do every day is like you're saying, is that I am on the same side as our agents. We are on the same team. We're solving problems for the parties that they won't even know necessarily that there's a problem that exists. You and I are trying to find a way to make it safe for Old Republic Title, who is my employer and my only client as an attorney. I'm making sure that it's safe for us, but I'm also at the same time making sure it's safe for Ben. It's safe for Avenue to Close as a company. There's things that fall outside of title insurance that happen in every transaction in terms of, distributing proceeds or holding escrows for things that have nothing to do with title, like roof repairs, things like that. Do you want to be involved in that? That's your decision as Avenue to Close. But I'll tell you when there's problems. People come to me all the time and said, these parties are getting divorced. They want me to hold the proceeds until they get a court order decide. I don't know that you want to do that. I don't know that, in a vacuum, and we don't have enough facts here, and I'm not going to present more facts because everybody will fall asleep. But if we know that they're fighting, they're litigious in this family court division with a divorce, do we really want to hold the money and be the person in the middle? We don't.
Right.
We don't want to do that because that exposes you and your company to potentially being joined in some kind of suit if the parties can't agree. And, I've not been divorced, but I'm to understand that they don't always agree when we're deciding things in a divorce. So, that's part of what I do, is not only protecting Old Republic, which is my first priority, but it's also protecting our agents.
Yeah.
Because we're on the same team. Right. Because we make money when you make money. That's how it works.
Right. But you also do that without using it as a sword.
Exactly.
Right? So you're coming from a stand of that.
Yeah, and it's like there's no reason for
There's a compliment inside of that. There's a compliment inside of that somewhere.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Thank you. And I don't know that I've ever actually set out to use it like that instead of like that. I think that's just me.
Right.
That's just the way I was raised, and there's no need for the ego when we're solving problems together.
Right.
You know what I mean? And certainly there's conversations I have all the time. They're adversarial. I mean, when was the last time you had to hold inheritance tax escrow when an estate seller? I'm on the phone with those estate attorneys who are mad. They're mad because they don't want their client to be without that money for any kind of period of time. And, we'll get to a place where we can agree. It's just, you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. Is that the saying? Something like that.
Right.
That's kind of how I've always been. And that's the way I was raised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome, because I think, as I was preparing for this today with you, I mean, we could have gone down so many paths.
Yeah, of course.
Right? We could have really dissected the ERA and why, how to derive that.
Yeah.
You can figure that out.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
That's an equation.
Yeah.
So we could have gone down any path in here, but when I was preparing for this and you coming in, build between the lines, and the podcast that we're doing now is sitting down with all walks of life.
Yeah.
Right. Saying, what are you doing behind the scenes to build that unshakable character? Right. The things you want to tap into for yourself, so that you can be a better husband, father, right, brother, sister, mom, whatever. Right. And to get the word out, and the message out to people, that really what you're searching for is innate in you. So just craft that.
Yeah. And I don't know if this was ever said growing up, but it's certainly by example. And that's what I try to do with my kids who are younger than your kids, but they're getting older every day. My father started his own business months after I was born. And he never said this, but no matter what you do in life, was what I saw from him. Try to be the best. I mean, why would you settle for anything less?
Right.
My dad has a tremendous reputation as a title searcher in this area. Everybody knows his name because he's very good at what he does. He's the best in the business. I jokingly say that to him all the time, and he laughs because he wouldn't acknowledge that. But he truly is.
I'll sit here and acknowledge that.
You've seen his searches. Like, you know what he's capable of.
Right.
And he is, and we say anybody can do the easy ones, but the best in the business gets the best of the best.
Right.
And that's what he is. And now the full circle of moments for me is he calls me and asks me, does this lien? What do you think about this lien? What do you think about this legal description? And it's like, just, I'll be at his house on a Saturday for dinner, and he's like, you got to come look at this map. And we talk title.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And so that's what I try to do. It's not leading with words. And my kids are too young to understand those words anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad never said it. But it's like whatever you set out to do, like you're saying, you're going to have people in here from all walks of life. Whatever that walk of life is, you try to be the best.
Mm-hmm.
Because, who wants to be mediocre?
Right.
You want to be the best at whatever it is you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to be the best bagger of groceries.
Yeah.
When I was 16 years old, I was.
Mm-hmm.
And I still joke with my wife about it now because when she bags the groceries, it's a mess. And I still have a certain amount of pride when when I'm in the store with her,
mm-hmm.
and I'll stand at the end of the self checkout and I'll bag it like I would,
right.
30 years ago.
Yeah.
20 years ago.
Yeah. Never the heavy stuff on top of the bread.
No, of course not.
Right, you just
you got to build the base, then you put the bread on top. It's simple stuff. But
everybody knows
that's the
right.
point. Is like whatever you're doing,
yes,
whatever you choose to do, then be the best
and take pride in that endeavor.
Exactly.
Right? Not pride that turns into some ugly ego.
Right.
Right. Because you can have good ego that drives you.
Yeah, of course.
For that, but have pride in that.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever it is.
Right.
Right. Be the best bagger on the planet. Right.
Yeah.
30 years ago, I want to be the best concrete finisher ever.
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's just
of course
everything that you do.
Yeah. And if you have that mindset, whatever it is you do, you're going to be better than most because not everybody has that mindset.
Right.
Everybody's, not everybody, but a lot of people are punching the clock.
Yeah.
And there's something noble in that too. But if I'm going to be doing something, I want to be the best.
Right.
And it's going to be a long road,
yeah.
But
do you think people can shift that mindset? Do you think you have it or you don't have it? Because
that's a good question.
Yeah. Because that's that question of are you born leader?
Yeah,
right?
And I don't know that I was born with that mindset, but I saw by example what that meant. And that's what I plan on doing with my kids. My kids are 7 and 4. They don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
They don't understand why dad's gone, because he's working. They don't understand, what it is that I do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a hard thing to explain. I mean, I have friends in law school who I explain to them what I do for a living and they don't understand.
No.
It's a crazy thing, a niche world that I occupy and you occupy, but mine's even more niche than yours. Like people, when they buy and sell homes, they use the services of Avenue to Close.
Yeah,
so everybody has experience that way. The people that own homes, they have that experience. They don't interface with title insurance underwriters. I'm like the in-between.
Right.
You're the in-between between
right.
me and consumers and people that do what I do and the consumers. So it's a very niche world, but, so my kids don't understand, but I hope that they understand that dad woke up and went to work every day and came home, right around dinner time to make a better life for them and to be the best at this little niche world that I can.
Yeah.
And was I born with it? I don't know. That's a hard question.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, guys, I've researched a lot of this. No matter if it's reading or we can get into what we share what we like to read. Obscure history.
Yes, very obscure.
But I won't go down that path. But that's all part of, I think, honing your craft is find that book, find that podcast, find that rate, find the music, find something that gets you. Generating what you have inside to use that as an engine moving forward, right? Instead of just looking and scrolling and then, that might be cool. Or now all of a sudden you want to be like that person instead of, taking some piece of what they are.
Yeah.
Because I don't think so. I don't think leaders are born to the point, right? I think you have. I think everybody is born with attributes.
Sure.
To become that.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's the age-old discussion between nature and nurture, or is it some combination of both? And it's probably a combination of both.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you only know what you're exposed to when you're little.
Mm-hmm.
Like my kids, it's so funny to see the world through their eyes. Their world is our yard and our house, and then school for a few hours a day. It doesn't. To them, that's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's so funny. We're going on this weekend. We're flying to Chicago. It'll be the first time my kids have ever been on an airplane, and they are so excited that they can't even contain themselves. They've been talking about it for like a month.
Yeah,
and it's so funny because how many airplane rides have I been on?
Sure,
countless.
Right,
but to see the world through their eyes, it's like all that nurture now.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, or fortunately for them, they're born with a lot of my attributes, both physically and emotionally and mentally, psychology, but now we're getting to expose them to more of the world. And I didn't have that opportunity as much as a kid because my dad was building a business, right? But certainly that's something that I have the ability and the privilege to do, and that's what it is. It's like we take the nature and let's put it out in the world and give them some more nurture.
Yeah, so, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think you have to continue on with that though, right?
Yeah.
Because like the perspective of that's a great way to look at it, seeing the world through their eyes.
Yeah.
Right? Because any parent or anybody in charge of somebody else, right?
Yes, like that's it.
You have to step and put yourself in their shoes, right? And see things from their eyes. Right. And I think that avoids a lot of conflict everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. If
yes,
you can
absolutely.
You can just pause for a second and say, I wonder what Eric's going through today.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And that's a lot of it where, coming back to my job, that's what it is. It's like I can sense on the phone if an agent's having a day.
Yeah.
Or if they're, it's a normal day. Like if they're stressed, they have questions that they need answers to, I'll be short and to the point and wish them well on their way. But and then the other times there's a conversation for 20 minutes about the Masters this weekend.
Yeah.
You can just kind of get a sense of their perspective, because I know what it is. I never was a title agent, but I know what it is to be in that seat. I know what it's like, and whatever you need at that time, I'm here to give it to you. I'm going to give you an answer no matter what we're talking about or what the context of the rest of the conversation is. But I know when there's time to chum it up, for lack of a better term, or time to get off the phone and let them get done what they need to get done, because that's what they're worried about at the time. But you're right. Seeing it through the other people's eyes, it's less adversarial that way. There's no need for the sword.
Right.
And you just use everything as a shield.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. Because like I said, I was preparing for this, I never made this correlation before this morning, with wanting to do this and talking to people from walks of life. What we do really, like for the underwriter down to the title agent, and all the employees involved in both of those respective areas. Yeah. It's all behind the scenes.
Yeah.
All of it's behind the scenes. So I made that correlation this morning about wanting to come on here and dive a little bit deeper into what builds people. And then I came wow, wait a minute, hold on a second. Eric's coming in. Nobody knows who he is.
No.
Nobody, but then
Nobody should.
So it comes down to that. You're their primary. Nobody knows who you are. And we're the secondary. Nobody knows who we are, right? I don't know if the tertiary might be lender. I don't know that, right? So, so I think for us, it's like making that correlation was like eye-opening for me this morning. It's like that we go and we do every single day. You build your craft behind the scenes, right? We're doing that to our certain degree with actually right down to the buyers themselves.
Yeah, and we're partnerships in business, but our businesses are very different.
Yes.
Mine is much more niche, as we said, and man behind the curtain stuff. You're out in front of people. That's how you get business.
Right.
Whether it's your realtor clients, lender clients, what have you. You're out in front of people, and we are too. Like we want great agents to be part of our network, right? Like Avenue to Close. Like that's I've often said this about underwriters, and it's kind of a niche thing, but all we have to sell are our people. Not to bore anybody, but the title rates for title insurance in Pennsylvania are standard. Nobody can sell them for any more or any less than what everybody else can. So the only thing that differentiates our product from our competitors is the people that you interface with every day.
Absolutely.
To the extent that we have to be forward facing for our agents, that's true. But we're not as forward facing for as many groups as a title agent would be, for example, because we have a very niche audience for our services.
And I believe that example right there is paramount to the exceptional relationship Old Republic has with Avenue to Close, and vice versa.
Absolutely.
Right, because if we're in it and we're doing it, and I'm on a unicycle with juggling chainsaws that are up in the air, right? That's kind of like a glimpse into what almost some transactions look like.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm just there to check.
I don't know how to
goes...
juggle, and I don't know how to ride a unicycle, but we do.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, fine, awesome. But I think that understanding this, pulling it back into Old Republic and Avenue to Close and the relationship there, is that you represent and you work for your individual title agents, right? Yeah. So and so what the confusion that lies in us when we're giving that product out to everybody else, like I said before, like we're not a party to the sales agreement, must abide by the terms of it. And, as the quarterback of this, here's the playbook, this is the plays we're going to run, we're going to score a touchdown, right? But when people ask me, well, who do you represent the buyers in this? I'm like, oh no, I don't represent the buyers, right? I represent Old Republic in this. Right, we are the approved agent for them. So every decision that we have to make has to assimilate into, doing a great job, but we got to back this up a second here because we represent Old Republic, who has entrust us to give this nice, clean title to the buyer.
Right, absolutely.
Right, to where they have the quiet enjoyment of the property for 3 to 5 or years, however long they're going to do now.
Depends on their interest rate.
Yeah. But that's could be a whole other podcast on market forecast.
Yeah, oh please.
We won't do that.
I don't pretend to know.
Right. So where did you go to law school?
I went to Duquesne.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't even say that. Yeah, I actually graduated from Duquesne Law School 60 years after my grandfather did.
Really?
Yeah, he graduated in 1952. My dad still has his diploma, and I graduated in 2012.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Walking the same halls.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm sure it was very different.
No, but
60 years.
I don't think it is. Has it been?
I don't know. They redid it recently. Yeah. I haven't been back since they redid it, but I have to assume they did something. In 60 years. Yeah. But who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool, though.
Yeah. But I had an opportunity to go to the University of Dayton Law School, with some scholarships that kind of coincided with me going there undergrad, but there was a statistic, I don't know if this is true anymore, that 80% of the people that graduate from a law school end up working within a 50-mile radius.
Really?
Is what they say. Yeah. I don't know if that's still true, but it was something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I want to come home.
Yeah.
I'm from Pittsburgh, born and raised in the North Hills. Like I wanted to be here. So I was like, well, let's try Duquesne on for size.
Yeah.
And it worked out well for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome because then there's spheres of influence from thereafter.
Yeah, exactly. And it gave me an opportunity to work for my dad more on a full-time basis, at least in my second and third year of law school when I had more time on my hands.
Yeah.
First year, I don't know that I had time for anything.
I think right around that time period too, there was a real expansion of Old Republic to the Pittsburgh market at that time.
Yeah.
So you're talking about your path of where you go. Right, and you just, I was born into we went down that road already.
Yeah, exactly.
But then there's that situation to where, you're right there because there's an opportunity for that.
Yeah, it's like the book Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell. I don't know if you've read it, but it's basically like just great timing. Like Bill Gates learned to code right as that became a thing for personal computers, right? That's why he is who he is. And on a much, 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 much smaller scale, it's similar for me. It's because I'm the third employee hired in Old Republic Pittsburgh office.
Right.
I'm the longest tenured one now. My predecessors have retired happily. So, I'm the most senior employee, and I've only been there for not even 13 years now. I think the office in Pittsburgh started 3 years before I started Old Republic.
Yeah.
So without that office opening there, to your point, I wouldn't have even had the opportunity to work in my current capacity.
That was the same thing for me though, too.
Yeah.
Right? I came into the industry not knowing anything.
Right.
Not knowing anything. I didn't have a background in real estate or law or anything. I mean, it was just, meeting with the, Venerable Sue Swick.
Yeah.
And that same thing that they wanted to expand out into this market. And it was that time period to where I was coming into this, and I don't know who exactly said that, but in coaching sports and in life, like we talk about, well, that was luck, right? And I say it's not luck; it's when the preparation meets opportunity.
That's right.
So I think that's kind of where anybody who's like, well, this isn't my spot. This isn't. I don't know. Like you have to be patient in that endeavor, but like you said. Crafting and being like every day being that good human being.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's the easy stuff.
for most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's, that's the preparation for when the opportunity comes to make the most of that opportunity.
Yeah.
It's just, being the best version of yourself. Again, whatever you're doing at that time, that's what you want to be. And, it's just a mindset that if you're the best at this, then I'll be I'll get another opportunity. Then I'll pursue being the best at that.
Yeah.
And then that's how it, it begets more opportunity when you're prepared that way and you're forward facing the world with that mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was poetic right there.
Oh, please.
That was, no, it really was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, I mean, what we do, we get into this. Yeah. We get into our industry. We get into talks about that. Right?
But what we do is not who we are.
No.
It's an extension of who we are.
Right.
But it's not who we are.
Right.
And I think that's the important part too, is that I don't try to be the best title insurance underwriter every day. I'm trying to be the best husband. I'm trying to be the best father, trying to be the best brother, friend, son, all of those things I'm trying to be the best at. It just happens that from 9 to 5 most days, I'm underwriting title insurance.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you got to come back on here, and I think we have to really drill down something very specific here.
Okay.
Would you come and do that?
Yeah, of course. I'm always open to being here.
Whatever it is, we can figure it out.
Yeah.
You
tell me.
Yeah.
I'll be here.
Maybe we'll just read a book back and forth.
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
Talk about what that is.
Yeah.
But I think, I really appreciate you coming on today.
Of course. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. It's a very rare situation for me, or for I think people in general, to have admiration the longer you come into something with somebody.
Yeah.
Right? Like who you are, what you do, how you do it every single day. Right. Who you are within Old Republic, who we are in this relationship that we have. Like I have the fullest admiration for you.
Wow, and that feeling is always mutual.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no more superlatives that I could throw on top of the way I feel about you in this business and the way I feel about you as a person now after all these years. Yeah,
just you are who you become who you're around.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Absolutely.
So that's the takeaway from this last part of the segment is like you be careful who you hang around with.
Right.
Be careful what you're putting into your ears.
Yeah.
Be careful what you're seeing with your eyes.
Yeah.
Because that's inevitably going to form who you are.
Absolutely.
It's never too late to put the brakes on that. And to take a real reevaluation of who you are. Mm-hmm. It's never too late for that, but be very, very careful.
Right. Yes.
who you are around.
Yeah.
Right. And the information you're taking in.
You are who you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
That's what they always say.
Absolutely.
And that's true.
Yeah. Thanks, brother.
Yeah. Anytime, buddy.
Yes.
It's great to be here.
Between the lines.
Yeah.